Hello there, and welcome to the seventh in the series of our program, How Chevron Nigeria Limited is underdeveloping its host communities with particular reference to the IRDC and CICD models. In this series, we shall try and highlight, explain, and elucidate the concept of development very briefly as it relates to our allegation against Chevron. Many a people simply narrow the meaning of development, and that is the reason why those who are pro Chevron, and indeed some of the workers in Chevron, would want to tell you that Chevron is doing wonderfully well in terms of development. But just like it is customary in intellectual circles, there is a need to have clarification of concept, at least a little explanation on the concept of development. Development transcends physical infrastructure. It also dovetails into, very importantly, human capital development. This point I have stressed myself to make in the past few days. Now, let us even talk about the physical development of these areas. If you took a trip through these host communities, you will discover that they are a shadow of themselves. If you were told that a responsible company has been operating in these areas for over 40 years, you want to wonder if that is true. Now, most of the physical development you find in these areas, their sources are not traceable to Chevron's corporate social responsibilities. They are mere individual and group efforts, completely divorced from the CRS, the corporate social responsibility efforts of Chevron. Now, one would like to think, and I belong to that school of thought, that the United States of America is an example of democracy. And by logical inference, a company that is indigenous to the United States of America should be an ambassador of participatory process. Democracy is not only limited to its being practiced by state actors, it is also a system of government that is desirable by communities, by clubs, by wards, by local governments, by states, and indeed by a country. In my opinion, and the opinion of many progressive minded people, the degree to which a people can determine their destiny will define how participatory they are in their process. Now, if we took the little explanation we have made now and brought it into the design, conceptualization, and implementation of the IRDC and CICD initiatives, we will discover that indeed 85%, much more than that, I will argue, are oblivious, completely oblivious about what these initiatives are, not to talk about their participating in it. And that is why I said that Chevron is deliberately underdeveloping these communities. In my past episode, I have highlighted, I have explained how it is that Chevron, in its own way, has been able to identify an oligarchic few with whom they have been dealing for the past 13, 14, 15 years. Now, they also presume that the leadership in these communities do not change. Their response has been, we are here to do business. But like I said, we are not living in a global village. And that is why, for instance, Nigeria will be conducting an election. The United States of America will send observers to come and see what they are doing. It is also important to note that all the benefits and entitlements that are accruable to these communities in the past decades and above have been domesticated, have been archived in the hands of these few people. A few days ago, there is a credible piece of information that some part of the monies that were allegedly tied down as a result of litigation have been assessed. It is said, and from a very reliable source, that more than 300 million from the account of one of the initiatives has been deducted in the name of pseudo items. And it is baffling that in this whole thing, the public is given the impression that due process is usually followed. What kind of due process do you follow while matters are in court and you deplete the rest of the matter? You deplete the subject matter of the case. It is sad. And indeed, we should know that the only thing that is constant in life is change. And let us pray that negative change will not come about. Now, the way and manner in which Chevron runs this initiative is such, and I ask anybody, I challenge anybody to prove me wrong, is one in which the funds, the entitlements in terms of scholarship, contracts, and what have you are domiciled in the hands of these Mugabes. They are continually so domiciled that there is no accountability. A participatory process entails a situation where a majority of the people will have a say in how the benefits and entitlements of their community is expended. The question is, do the majority of the people have a say? The answer is definitely no. As I speak, I tell you that majority of those listening to these tapes either do not know that there is a CICD or do not know what the acronym stands for, not to talk about the concept. What should be a company as rich as Chevron in terms of material and intellectual input should be able to sit down and rethink its process? There has to be a scheme of monitoring and evaluation to be able to determine that all the efforts, all the resources allegedly spent as corporate social responsibility budget achieve its maximum impact. Of what use will it be to Chevron to record in the books that they have spent billions of naira, and these billions are domesticated in a few individuals' accounts? What therefore is the meaning of social justice? Social justice should reflect in the execution of these initiatives. And by social justice, I mean that the benefits, the entitlement, should be dictated by the majority of the people. I remember in my school days a very popular quote by Lord Denning of blessed memory. And he said, and I quote, that justice is rooted in confidence. And confidence is destroyed when right-thinking members of the society go away thinking that the judge was biased. End of quote. If I relate it to this situation, I would say that social justice is rooted in the confidence of the people. And when reasonable members of these communities, majority of them, go away thinking that Chevron is doing the wrong thing, Chevron necessarily has to take the blame for the underdevelopment of these communities. Will Chevron be proud about the caliber of leadership that have evolved for these two initiatives? It is sad to note that even at a time like this, at a time when Chevron professes to be doing due diligence, professes to be respecting the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, you have two key initiatives. In one, there's a young man who is a chairman. In the other one, that same young man is a vice chairman. Does it mean that we as a people have become deficient in the capacity, in terms of capacity of those that can man these initiatives? I think Chevron needs to truly be a good ambassador of his home country and promote democracy in these communities. The oligarchic dispensation of the past 15 years and above must come to an end. And I pray that it comes to an end peacefully, because the endurance of the majority of the people is being stretched out. So I call on Chevron, I call on those who are there now, that they have to realize that the cheating of the people, the silencing of the majority of the people can no longer continue, because the era of apartheid, where the minority rules over the majority, has ended long ago, and it must now end. Thank you very much.